Welcome to a live YouTube edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside from CBSSports.com. He's becoming a repeat offender here at Beyond the Arc. Sam Quinn is back yet again. What's up, Sam?
Repeat offender? What have I done wrong?
You keep coming on this program, so you probably have to examine your life
choices,
but we love having you.
They're going to hold that against me in a court of law.
They might actually. It doesn't speak well of your character, but we do enjoy having you around. We're just done watching the final group stage game of Team USA, Game 3. They win again. They beat Puerto Rico. I don't even remember what the score was. It's around here somewhere, but it was a big score. Sam, they started off slow in the first quarter, and then they just absolutely thumped Puerto Rico. At first, it was yet again another one of those, I don't know about Team USA not looking so hot, and then they just pulled away. My buddy Dan Devine, who I worked with at a previous stop, who works over at Yahoo, tweeted this out, and I think it's probably right. He said that maybe we need to stop concern trolling Team USA early on in games and just kind of think about it as like a distance swim, because eventually the best swimmers end up with a big lead at the end, and that's kind of Team USA in these things.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, Jose Alvarado can make 2 or 3 shots in a 5-minute span, right? Like, in any basketball game, if you're going to condense it to a few minutes, sure, weird stuff can happen. But over a 40-minute stretch, a favorite like Team USA, and they were, I think, a 34.5-point favorite in this game, like, of course they're going to break away. I don't think anyone was ever really
didn't cover the spread.
They did not cover the spread. No, they came close. They were down at the beginning of the second quarter, and then I think they were on pace to cover it by the end of it. Like, if you just isolate the best stretches for Team USA when they're fully engaged and like, oh yeah, they're going to go plus 22 in this quarter or something, they look totally unbeatable. But like maintaining that over a 40-minute stretch, it's for a variety of reasons, it's difficult. It's hard to be too engaged in the fourth quarter when you're up 25. I know like Anthony Edwards gave them something to play for down at the end. But generally speaking, like there's shooting variance, there's like boredom when you're up that much. The difference between a 21-point win and like a 41-point win, it's not that much. Like they're fine.
I was going to do the math there, but I've decided not to. When I opened the show, if you were listening on podcast form and I didn't know the score, you probably excuse that. If you're watching us live on YouTube right now, I don't know if producer Aaron had the score below me, like on the Chiron, when I said that I didn't realize that it was 104.81. I hope it was there, just for the YouTube watchers to be like, he couldn't even see the score there. All right, so they end up 3-0 in Group C. That's the end of the group stage. They end up as the number 1 seed, Sam. Number 2 seed will be Germany, and then 3 seed will be Canada, which means that Team USA won't have to face Germany ostensibly until the gold medal game. And it appears that they will play Brazil in the quarterfinals. Is that correct?
I think so. Unless there's like maybe there's a South Sudan situation where
you can't play the team in your group.
I'm 99% sure it's Brazil. Let's assume.
Yeah, it's Brazil. We're going to go with Brazil. They're going to play Brazil first. So they get through the first quarter. We could go a number of different ways here. Do you want to start with the positive or do you want to, this is also kind of positive too, because in the last game, we absolutely demolished Stephen Embiid. Which side do you want to start with here?
Why don't we get the like Stephen Embiid stuff out of the way? Because I feel like that's such an overreaction inherently to be like, these 2 former MVPs are disasters. And like, don't get me wrong, like the concerns with Embiid, it's all relative, but it's legitimate, right? Like he's still one of the best players in this tournament, but it is fair to say like maybe Davis and Bam are slightly easier fits with this roster. But like, surprise, surprise, Joel Embiid is going to have games where he scores a lot of points. And he's more like physically, he's dominating over these lesser big men that these other countries have. So, yeah, it turns out it was a little bit of a concern troll situation. They were like, yeah, Stephen Curry isn't going to miss all of his shots every game in a row. He's Stephen Curry. That's why he's on this team in the first place. So I think there are smaller things you can kind of poke holes at. Like, sure, Embiid's pick and roll game doesn't really mesh with LeBron's that well. He wasn't always in the right position defensively, but in the macro sense, it's good to have Joel Embiid on your basketball team.
Well, he got more shots up in this game than he had in any game previously. He was more involved in the offense than he had been in any game previously. He was active defensively. He had a couple of blocks, looked really good. I thought, that everything that we talked to, multiple things can be true here, right? That AD and Bam can be a better fit for FIBA style of basketball and how Team USA wants to play, but also they weren't really using Embiid. I mean, he was kind of just like a decoy in those first couple of games. And in today's game, Steve Kerr rolls him out there and really commits to like getting him involved in the offense. And I thought it was easily his best game. He had a DMPCD versus South Sudan, so that couldn't have been his best game. But he was booed pretty consistently when he was out there today, and he really leaned into it. He did the hand to the ear, like Hulk Hogan, Allen Iverson thing, which I enjoyed. You're only kind of laughing at it. I was fully laughing at it. But we had Steve Kerr previously talking about how, like, with Embiid, it was going to be matchup based, right? And that he threw him out there against Serbia because Serbia had a bigger front line. He didn't use him against South Sudan because South Sudan's a little bit smaller. Well, Puerto Rico is small. So I tell me if I'm wrong here. I don't think Steve Kerr is being fully honest with us.
No, I think Steve Kerr is kind of just figuring it out as he goes, right? And like, look, the devil's advocate here is that Puerto Rico is just, from a talent perspective, so much further behind than like Serbia was that you don't really have to be aggressively matchup hunting. And having Drew Holiday out, like, look, having Drew Holiday in the game is important, but with him out and Halliburton like not really in the rotation, it did kind of clarify things where it's like we knew going into this game, this is the 10-man rotation, and they were still running with a lot of the like 5-man line shifts, especially earlier on. So whether he was going to start or come off of the bench, we did kind of know coming in. Embiid is going to play a fair amount, and playing Bam and AD together off of the bench, it made it a little bit easier. Okay, with the starting lineup, we only have one big man on the floor. There's a lot of space. Sure, we can work it inside and let Embiid get in a groove that can hopefully pay dividends down the line.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me. This team is so, like, I saw somebody saying earlier online, and apologies to whoever this was, but I thought that it was an interesting point that, it's so difficult for Steve Kerr to work through these rotations, and he's got so many good players, and it's one of the best teams that the Americans have ever fielded. Well, but this isn't the only good team that Americans have ever fielded, right? The Redeem team had, to a lesser extent, these sort of same, like, how do you work through these rotations? And the Dream team definitely did. They had 11 guys. They just basically said, Christian Laettner, enjoy your trip to Barcelona. Everybody else is going to play and you're not. But they still had to work through 11 guys, right? So it's not unique to Steve Kerr. It's just that, they do have a lot of really good players. And, like, I guess that's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, I think going back to the World Cup last year, where Steve Kerr tried to talk Anthony Edwards into coming off of the bench, and he said Dwayne Wade did it in 2008. Right. And then Anthony Edwards just came back and said, well, there's not a Dwayne Wade on this team, or there's not a Kobe ahead of me. And sure enough, by the way, like, Anthony Edwards comes off the bench today, and I think he scores, 25, 26?
Yeah, at a game high. He looked amazing.
It's a very nice luxury to have where basically anybody you put on the floor can be your best player in a given game, right? Like, today it was Anthony Edwards. Like, it wouldn't be crazy. It's not going to happen because he's not going to play enough. But, like, if you told me Tyrese Halliburton just had a game where he made 7 threes, that wouldn't be crazy. It's nice to have when you're playing against these teams. Like, for example, today was Puerto Rico. Like, Jose Alvarado scored 26 points against South Sudan when they played them. Like, Jose Alvarado is going to be their best player most of the time. If not, it's going to be like 1 or 2 other guys. It's sort of the same with most of these other opponents. Like, if you're losing to
Germany,
Canada,
you're going to be
like, exactly, SGA or Brooks or Barrett. Like, it's a short list of guys. For Team USA, like, it can be anybody. If you walk into a game and it's like tight midway through the second quarter, and then Devin Booker makes 4 big shots, we can be the Devin Booker team for the rest of the game.
Sure. Yeah, that's absolutely right. It was a really evenly distributed day today in terms of scoring. You mentioned Anthony Edwards. He had 26 points, but then you had AD with 10. You had Kevin Durant with 11. By the way, Kevin Durant also had 4 rebounds. That moves him. Now he's not only the men's Team USA all-time leading scorer, he passed Carmelo Anthony as the all-time leading rebounder. So pretty good career for him in international play.
Have we just not, like, brought big men multiple times? Why isn't that happening? How many bigs have played more than twice?
I don't know.
Has that ever happened?
I think it's mostly because Kevin Durant has just been on Team USA in perpetuity. So when you just keep going, it makes it easier. Also, he's very good at basketball. But then
he's going to be the steals leader in the few Olympics at this rate.
Yeah, and I believe it's Lisa Leslie that he has a chance to pass for both men's and women's all-time leading scorer in the next game. So he's had quite an accomplished career. But then for the starters, also you had Tatum and LeBron with 10 points each. You had Joel Embiid, as I mentioned, his best game to date. Not saying a lot, but still he had 15 points and a couple of blocks. And then you had Devin Booker with 9 and Steph Curry with 8. Steph also, I mean, in our last show we had Brad Bodkin on the show. Brad Bodkin, noted Warriors fan and also hater, I guess. I don't know. He absolutely
Warriors fan. Is that what we want to
so, maybe, yeah. He absolutely crushed Steph Curry in our previous show, and you and I were left to defend Steph Curry, going, "Well, wait a minute. I mean, he's still really good. He's still Steph Curry, and I think like eventually the shot's going to fall." It did a little bit more today. It still wasn't a super efficient game for him, but as I was watching him, I'm thinking like, man, like the overreaction to both him and Embiid. We already talked about the Embiid component, but the overreaction to Steph Curry. It's not like Steve Kerr's going to go away from him. He's still Steph. He's going to knock down some shots. Like, what are we worried about here? I guess because we just have to nitpick something.
Yeah, and the other thing about it is like you just named all of those other guys on the team who like shot well or played well today. It's not an accident they were on the floor with Stephen Curry, right? Like whether or not Steph is going to make his own shots, he's going to bend defenses in the same way every game. You're never going to leave Stephen Curry open. He could go 0 for 15 and still have a positive impact on offense. So like there were some moments in the last game where like he was getting picked on defensively, and that's a legitimate concern. There might be specific moments like late in the game against Canada where like if SGA is doing the SGA thing and like Jamal Murray hasn't looked like Jamal Murray yet in this tournament, if he ends up doing it, where you say, okay, there are just too many weapons on the floor. We can't have Steph getting picked on. Maybe now is the time we take him out. But generally speaking, he's going to be a positive value player anytime he's on the court, regardless of whether or not the shots are going in.
Yeah, his gravity is legit, right? I mean, like you have to pay attention to where Steph Curry is and what he's doing, and that impacts the game and it opens things up for the rest of the team. 1 for 9 versus South Sudan. Brad wanted to jump off the Golden Gate, and then today I'm hoping that Brad, wherever he is feeling a little bit better about Steph Curry, who not dead yet, as it turns out. I wanted to talk about LeBron too and how excellent he's been this entire tournament. I mean, he and KD obviously are just like really just very solid, right? But LeBron, it's quite clearly his team. We spoke about this as well on the previous show, but he has really decided that, he's going to be the guy again. This is going to be his team. He's going to run Team USA. It's worked out great. My question for you is, like, how much longer can he be LeBron? Because it doesn't look like he's going to stop anytime soon. Are we going to be looking at like 48-year-old LeBron playing like still reasonably well somewhere if he wants to?
I think as long as we can reasonably expect him to be playing, right? Like, I don't think we actually think he's going to be playing at 50. He might be like lacing up in a Vegas practice as the owner, like Michael Jordan did. But yeah. I think as long as he's still in the NBA, the question is not, can he still be LeBron? The question is like, how long can he do it within a game, right? Like where now LeBron can't be LeBron for 82 games and 4 rounds of the playoffs. Like he's going to be 40 this season. Come on. It's not going to happen. But if you're looking at like, it's a close game with 5 minutes left. Yeah. LeBron is still in there. LeBron can still be that guy. I think the amount he's capable of doing that is going to decline bit by bit by bit over the next few years. But like, I have a really hard time imagining even like 42-year-old LeBron late in a big game, you're still going to want him out there making the decision because like, even as the athleticism declines, he's seen so much and he's so much smarter than everybody else. And he's willing to play any kind of game, right? Like, have you seen LeBron take a bad shot yet in these Olympics? Like
he just makes really good decisions. I mean, this is such a, we get paid to talk about basketball. This is not exactly a new point here, but he's so smart. He's such a smart basketball player and he makes the right decisions, the vast majority of the time. Very rarely do you go, oh, wow, that was a bad idea by LeBron. And he gets guys into, he had one hit ahead pass earlier where he threaded the needle. And I was like, man, he just sees the court so well and he understands where everybody should be positioned. And that's something, Sam, where you're right. Like, of course, eventually the athleticism will decline over time, although we're not really seeing that right now, but it will eventually ebb. He thinks the game better than everybody, though. That's not going to stop.
That's why, like, if you wanted to make the argument that he could play until he's like 48,
I
think what would realistically the reason he can't is he'd get hurt. But like, if you wanted to make the argument that he could be like a
slow down.
44-year-old point forward, like
Yes,
doing
that's
the
what I'm
Boris
talking about.
Diaw thing. Like, oh, I'm just going to hang out at the high post. I'm just going to like get an entry pass. I'm going to look around the floor. I'm going to see who you double. I'm going to see who's cutting. And like, I'm just going to rack up 12 assists doing that. Like, yeah, he probably could do that, right? Like,
I
he
mean,
had that pass to
Joker.
Embiid where he went like, I think he was on the left wing and he went behind the back to Embiid,
Yes,
cutting around. Like, how many human beings? It's the combination of size, vision, and just having seen everything on a basketball court where he's like, oh, I know exactly how this play is going to play out because I saw the same thing in 2011. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, he's a basketball genius, and there's nothing new about me saying that. But man, like, I've really come into the like, let's appreciate LeBron while we have him because there's never going to be anybody like this again.
I know. It's really amazing. Only 4 years ago, he led the NBA in assists, right? So, like, that idea of point forward, aging LeBron James, who's just slower. I mean, Joker is not an athletic talent, right? Like an athletic marvel. He's a giant guy who actually like moves pretty slowly, but his vision and what he can do in terms of passing guys open and finding the right position on the floor, that's something that he excels at. And like, why couldn't LeBron be like the Russian nesting doll, smaller version of that, right? And play just a little slower style at 45, 46. I think he could.
So there's sort of like, when you think about LeBron's skill set, some of the things are so prominent that you just don't even think about him doing smaller things. Like, the way I look at this was like when he re-signed with the Cavs in 2014, we never thought of LeBron as a role man because he always had the ball in his hands. Then he was playing with Kyrie Irving and they developed their own two-man game where it's like, oh, it turns out LeBron James is the best short roll playmaker in NBA history. He just never gets to be a short roll playmaker because he's doing more important things, right? Like, LeBron can do so many things on a basketball court that we never talk about because he's doing more important things. As he ages, he's going to get to a point where like, maybe you can't be running every single possession. So those smaller things are going to become more prominent. Like, LeBron is an incredible stationary passer, but when we think of LeBron as a passer, we're thinking of him like driving and kicking or passing on the move. As he gets older, these things that like, I don't even want to say we didn't know he could do. He just never bothered to show us because he had better stuff to do. Like, those are the things that are going to become more prominent. He's going to age into, like, I think Jokic is a pretty appropriate comparison where, like, when he's in his early 40s, as long as he wants to keep playing, if he wants to do the Jokic thing where he plays really slowly and, like, holds the ball and surveys the court and, like, really focuses on certain kinds of passes that he hasn't made as much in his career, like, he can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. I have now with you talked to myself into please give me 46 to 50-year-old YMCA dad game LeBron.
Let
want
him
that.
Be the first owner player. Let him own the Vegas team and play for it.
Aren't there rules against that? I think there might be rules against that.
I think that's a rule we made so that like Mark Cuban couldn't insert himself at point guard. I think we'd all be okay with LeBron doing that. Like, there's just the sort of things where it's like, and you know how in Air Bud where they're like, show me the rule that says a dog can't play point guard. I feel like there are rules that we have on the books, but we might just say like, if a dog really could play point guard, we'd want to see that, right?
Yeah, we'd wave it for LeBron.
With owner LeBron playing.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. Yes, please. Owner LeBron, Vegas. And also, like, what better residency in Vegas than LeBron, right? I mean, like, what an amazing show that would be. That would be super fun. Yeah, player coach and player owner are forbidden by the CBA, but yeah, you gotta waive that for LeBron, apparently.
Rules are meant to be changed. Like, that's fine. We figure it out.
Yeah, you know what? You and I take to the streets and we start a grassroots movement to make this happen.
Player coach thing.
Okay.
Producer Aaron says player coach is forbidden by the CBA. Like, okay, but LeBron's former podcasting partner, the Lakers coach. Like, are we sure he's not the player coach of the Lakers? Like, are we sure we couldn't just install a figurehead? He could be a player coach.
Oh, that's a great idea. This is great. I love it. We've just now come up with several ways to circumvent this, and we'll continue to noodle on it. All right, so we were talking about LeBron and his athleticism maybe waning. Ant's at the other end of the spectrum, right? Ant is, he's a rocket ship and it's only going up right now. And I guess this is kind of more of a forecasting for the upcoming season kind of question, but because we saw what he could do today. You mentioned that really it could be anybody on Team USA who could go off for a game, except for, I guess, Tyrese Halliburton, who was the only guy not to score today, although he did play. So congrats, Tyrese. But for Ant, where are you on him and his career trajectory, and what kind of season do you think we're going to get out of him? Because I feel like he's like super ramping up right now.
Okay, I want to make an Olympics point, and then I'll go into the NBA side of it.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about the closing lineup for whatever the close game ends up being, and like we assume LeBron is going to be in it. We assume Durant is going to be in it. We assume like outside of like a defensive substitution, Steph probably going to be in it. Like a lot of old guys, like Drew is another guy. Like a lot of the guys that we assume are going to be in at the biggest moments are the old ones. I was just thinking during this game that like Ant's athleticism, when you play him with LeBron and Durant and the other old guys, it just really pops off of the screen. It does pop. The energy is so infectious. Like I think it really does. Like especially KD, because like Ant has talked about this. He idolized KD. I do think there's something to like, wow, this young gun who like idolized me growing up is doing this. Like let me match that energy. I do think that's infectious, and it does make me think, maybe when we get to the biggest moment, Ant should be on the floor as one of the closers, right? Like I was thinking about the rotation before the tournament, and like there was all this talk about who the starting shooting guard was going to be. And I remember a year or so ago when they announced like, oh, these are the core players who are probably going to be on the team. Everyone was like writing in Devin Booker as a starting shooting guard. And Devin Booker, like, by the way, has played better than I thought. Like he's done a lot of really good little things. He's defending better than he usually does in the NBA. He's been a pretty willing passer, but like, Ant has just so clearly, he was better than him in the NBA. It showed in the playoffs too. He pops off of the screen in a way that I don't think anybody else, except maybe Davis and Bam as bigs, have throughout these Olympics. And when I look forward to this season, like I don't think like a lot of players talk about going to Team USA for the first time as a young player and like learning work habits, learning things that they can then translate to the NBA. I think Ant was already good there. What I will say, like, he was already very confident to go through this cycle and to be maybe one of the best players on the team, not necessarily one of the most productive, but like to be there and to like see firsthand, like I'm on a team with LeBron James, Kevin Durant, my childhood hero, and I am just as good as they are. I do think that's something that like, if you told me he made a real run at MVP and this was the launching pad, I could see that. Like, I think he's going to be better. There were small things in his game last year that you wanted to see tighten up just a little bit. Off-ball defense was one of them. He's great on the ball.
For sure.
He can get a little bit lax off.
Yeah, he gets a little loose sometimes when he's off ball.
A little bit better as a three-point shooter. That kind of came and go. It's a little inconsistent for him.
Yep.
I'd like to see him be a little bit better as a passer at a doubles. Like, these are just small correctable things that tend to get better with age. But if you're after 4 years, you're at the point where you're only dealing with the smaller stuff, that tells me you're probably going to be an MVP caliber player.
Yeah. And I like to watch his development at 22, 23 years old. And like, I didn't expect. I have a buddy who is a huge Ant fan who like a couple years ago was like, he's going to be an MVP within 5 years. And I was like, you're losing your mind. You're forecasting way too far down the road. And already now, like you said, if he makes a real run at it, it wouldn't surprise me. I think SGA is next, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. You mentioned closing lineups. We should also discuss like starting lineups and Kerr's rotation. And do we think that that's going to tighten up at all once we reach the knockout stage, which begins on Tuesday, we believe, against Brazil? Today, he started LeBron, Steph, and Booker again, and then inserted Embiid and Jason Tatum into the starting lineup. We talked about how like it is kind of a difficult decision because he has so many good players, but he's not the first Team USA coach to have to go through this. So yeah, do you think he's going to tighten up he didn't have Drew today because Drew had rolled his ankle, and I guess like out of an abundance of caution, they decided just to sit him. He should be okay for Tuesday, but which way are you going with the starting lineup?
I mean, the thing, if you're looking for things to be concerned about, and again, it's all relative, like Team USA is a huge favorite no matter how you look at it.
Yes.
Is there one 5-man unit throughout these 3 games that is like even played a substantial amount of time together? Like there's not one signature unit. There are like pockets of guys where like, okay, we know LeBron and Steph have been consistent in the starting lineup, and the Bam AD thing has kind of been an identity off the bench. Like, but there's not this one 5-man lineup where you go like, they've played 10 minutes together each game, and they've won those 10 minutes in each game combined by like 24 points. There's not that one unit, and I'm a little concerned that we haven't landed on like what is the closing lineup or like what is our go-to. I do think he'll tighten up a little bit, but I don't think he'll tighten up like I don't think he'll go into a game intending to play 8 players. What I think will happen in all likelihood is either it's not going to be against Brazil, but in one of the 2 games that follows, they're going to be like down 6 in the second quarter and he'll have used 10 guys. But from that point forward, he'll say like, okay, enough is enough. Like Tatum, you're out. Embiid, you're out. Whoever it's going to be, you're out. And I'm sticking with these 7, whoever it ends up being. So, I mean, look, I think the guys who should be locks, LeBron, obviously, Davis has been the best big. Durant has been the best scorer. I still am such a believer in Steph's gravity that I'm putting him in. Ant, Drew, and then, I mean, who after that is the?
I think you now have 7 people in your starting lineup.
No, I'm not even saying starting lineup. I'm saying this is the rotation.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, like those are the guys that I feel really good about. Like the guys who are next out. Like I don't mind sitting Halliburton. I don't mind sitting White if Drew is playing. Tatum and Booker.
Jason Tatum.
Yeah, like
Booker.
Fine, whatever. Like Embiid was the 3rd big to me. Like, they're clearly a lower tier down to me. If I were going to name a starting 5, it's probably Steph, Drew, LeBron, Durant, Davis.
That's mine too. Yeah, that's mine too. I think that's the 5, the starting 5, and probably the closing 5 that I would feel best about. But I definitely want a good heavy dose of Ant in there, and then also Bam. And then, I do like subbing, I like having one of Drew or Derek White on the floor just because you have 2 really good point of attack defenders and you can stagger them. And they fit so well with the other guys, right? I mean, like you have those other guys who can shoulder so much of the offense. So I really like rotating those guys. But yeah, then all of a sudden, really, it's more about who can you just afford to play less. And then it really is obviously Halliburton, obviously so far, Jason Tatum. Who am I forgetting here? I guess Embiid a little bit less, although he did play better today. And like they feel like with the big rotation, it really feels like they're just playing it by ear. Like they're just going in there and they're like, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. We're gonna start Embiid today, and then like I'll just look down the bench and talk to Spo and Ty Lue and be like, what do you think? It doesn't feel like there's a real mapped out plan on that.
Can we talk about Bam a little bit, by the way? Because like I think you could argue. I don't know that I'd say he's been as good as Davis, but he has not been far behind. And all of his shots have been like, they're no bad shots, right? He's taken not a lot, but he's taken some of those corner threes and he's been making them in this tournament. Defensively, he's been everywhere, but like, I'm just struck by how many times every game it seems like he's just wide open under the basket and just throwing down a monster dunk. Like, I think the way he's moving, all of the little things he's doing, like, he can't really do that with the Heat quite as much because his role is so much bigger. But I've been just really struck by the way Bam is moving, how comfortable he looks on the floor. And like, I think we had like a hierarchy almost of the big men in the NBA where like Embiid is an MVP and Davis was either the best or second best player and a champion. So we sort of looked at them as above Bam. No, Bam has been better than Embiid and almost as good as Davis. And like, do we have to maybe reevaluate the way that we think about him in the NBA a little bit?
That's a great question because when I think about him in the NBA, I think, first team all defense. He's really good as a defender. And then I go, he's not superstar level at anything else. He's just very good. But it's kind of the reverse of what we were talking, for me, the reverse of what we were talking about with Steph and Embiid, where I'm not going to look at Team USA and what's happening in the Olympics and go into the NBA season and go, you know what? I don't think Steph has it anymore. Or Joel Embiid's not an MVP candidate. I just think it's a really good format for him and maybe not such a good format for them. In the NBA, I'm taking Embiid all day, every day if I have the choice, right? I mean, because Embiid is also an otherworldly defender. It's just whether or not he can stay healthy. And he's infinitely better, I think, offensively than Bam. Now, we have seen Bam look really good and pop a couple threes. Like now, if he's starting to incorporate that a little bit, maybe we do have to like juice him up a little bit because he has looked good.
Yeah, I would say the thing with Embiid defensively is he's very, very good. He's just not as versatile. Like he almost has to play and drop. I don't want to say has to, but he's at his best playing and drop.
You don't want him anywhere near the perimeter.
Bam can do anything on defense.
Yes, that's
like
fair.
I think
that's
he
totally
might
fair.
be even like now at Davis's level, where like if you just want Bam to defend a top small forward for an entire game, he could do that.
Yeah.
He could also just be a traditional rim protecting center. And like there are a lot of things that we haven't seen in his game in the Olympics as much that were more prominent in the NBA. Like he had a really good playmaking season last year that I think really fell
He's
under the radar. Like I think there's a lot more to his game that is only going to be evident in the NBA, but we're seeing just in the smaller role that he can do all of the like, oh, if you just want me to dunk and shoot corner threes and play incredible defense, I'll do that too. The Heat are in this weird position where like they have a star perimeter player in Jimmy Butler, but he's not like the kind of star perimeter player that I think would enhance Bam in the way that LeBron does for AD. For instance, like I don't think he has this pick and roll maestro ball handler that could like really open up a lot of easier shots for Bam.
Yeah.
Seeing him in this context with these playmakers, I do sort of wonder the next iteration of the Heat. And like, we can be honest about this. They're the Heat. In 2 years, they're going to have some star player that they don't have now. I wonder if we're going to look back and say, were we underappreciating Bam for all of those years because the roster wasn't quite right for him? But now having seen what he can be with, you're not going to have a Team USA level supporting cast in the NBA, but like maybe with a slightly different kind of perimeter star, somebody who's a little bit more of a pick and roll navigator than Jimmy is, we might look back and say like, man, we did really underrate Bam.
That's a great point. Like a not Jimmy running mate would be like where he's more of the focal point is really kind of interesting. And that would definitely change my perspective. I wanted to run one more fun thing past you and then we can close up the show. This was a fun one. So how I talked to Ashley and Bill about this. How into the Olympics writ large are you?
Not very. I'll be honest. It's different for us because we do this for a living. Yeah. And I'm coming off of the 4-month grind of April through July, where like playoffs every night and then, the draft and free agency. I get to the middle of July and just, it feels a little unnatural to me to be as invested in sports as I am because of the Olympics. So like, I am now at the point where I'm a week away from vacation and I'm sort of thinking like, don't get me wrong. I'm happy to follow Team USA on the basketball court, but like, there's no part of me that wants to be watching like pole vaulting. It's kind of funny, actually. My parents are at the Olympic following the track and field right now because they're huge track and field fans. And they're sending me all these pictures and videos. And I'm like, guys, it's great. Not for me.
Not for you. It is, but it is very much for me. I'll get into that in a second. Where are you going for vacation?
I don't know yet. I am taking 2 weeks off. I still haven't figured anything out. I was just so locked in. I don't know. I'll figure something out. My family's going to be in town for a few days early on, so I'll stick around for that. And then I don't know. We'll see where the wind takes me.
I love that for you. What a journey that you'll go on in a little adventure. And for people who don't know, I mean, like this is an unusual year for NBA players, teams, people like us who cover this for a living, because generally you get to August and the league scatters to the wind.
Everyone's on vacation.
Everybody goes on vacation.
Is the front offices do take vacations too. So you'll get to early August and people will be asking about trade rumors. And it's like, not only do we not have information, nothing is happening because like Masai Ujiri is on a yacht somewhere. Like he's not talking about a trade at the moment.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. It goes dark through mid-September and then we ramp up again. But the reason why I asked you this is because, one, me personally, despite the fact that I'm like you, getting through the playoffs is a slog and it's just a lot of basketball and you expect some downtime. I love the Olympics. I cannot get enough of the Olympics. I'm the guy who's watching judo and beach volleyball and canoeing and you name it. If it's on, I'm going to watch this thing. The other night, I'm not even making this up. I came back and went to dinner with some friends who were in town. I came back and I was about to go to bed because we had a show the next day. And I let me just see what's on right now. And they had the replay of the women's triathlon. Stayed up till 1:30 to watch the full replay because I cannot help myself. But the reason why I bring this up is because Ant Edwards went to table tennis the other day. LeBron had gone to some beach volleyball. They're kind of like all around, like Snoop Dogg has gone to everything. Team USA has gone to some stuff. So today or the other day, whatever, they asked a bunch of the players, if you could play a different Olympic sport, what would you play? And so Drew said archery and KD said table tennis. and LeBron said track, and D Wade said fencing. And my favorite one was Halliburton, who said swimming, even though he can't swim. But if he could, that's the one for him, which is pretty great. So for you, Sam Quinn, even though you don't really like the Olympics, what would you play if you were in the Olympics? What would you do?
Is there an Olympic event for knowing to change the channel right at the exact end of a commercial break? That's probably my best skill, is timing commercial breaks. As far as Olympic events go, I'm trying to find a sport. I feel like there's sports like basketball where you know that you can play basketball or not, because if you can play basketball, you're going to play it at the highest levels, right?
Sure.
Like you're going to be found. I'm wondering if there's one of the more obscure sports that I might have been really good at, but never got into because like there was not $1 million league that I could have gone into. Like maybe I would be a great fencer. I was just never pushed into fencing because there was no future in it.
You weren't exposed to it. You could be an amazing badminton player. You don't know.
I've played a little bit of badminton. I wouldn't say I'm great, but like I do think I have some untapped potential there. Badminton might be my answer. I love handball. Looks really fun. I think I could get really into handball. I'm a very bad ping pong player. Table tennis is out.
I love.
Wait, so what's yours? Let me brainstorm with me here.
So I like you. You know, if I could play basketball, I would. Beach volleyball. I live in Southern California. Literally, all of the beach volleyball players for Team USA train like I don't know, a 10-minute walk from my place. They're just all in South Bay, and that's where they train. Just like here in Southern California with the Pacific as their backdrop. So that's pretty cool. I would love to do that, but I'm not like super, I can't jump very high, and I'm short. You know, I'm only 5. Well, I'm not short. I'm an average sized male. I'm not like Chase Butler, who played in the NBA and then is now a beach volleyball superstar who's like 6'8" or whatever he is. So then it did make me think about this. Like, so if I got in a canoe, would I be really awesome at canoeing, you know, or rowing or something? I don't know.
Learn that. I think that's something where if you put in the work on your body, it's a very simple motion. Like, could I say bobsled? Because it's like a lot of people.
Well, now you're going into Winter Olympics.
But no, I'm just saying, like, that is something where, like, once you're sitting in the sled, I do feel like there's not much skill to it. So.
I think there's a lot of skill to it. That's very funny.
What is something that is not an Olympic event that you would like to put in the Olympics just so you could participate?
I mean, I'm a pretty good backgammon player. I'd throw backgammon in. It'd be more like mental gymnastics than it would be physical gymnastics.
I have a lot of respect for a backgammon player. I feel like there's an element of class that comes.
Spades. I'm pretty good spades player. I'd throw that out there. We should producer Aaron says that you're like the new Cool Runnings guy. We should also mention, because we had said that August goes dark, that there is one bit of news that will be coming up this week where Lauri Markkanen is eligible to sign his extension on August 6th. And if he doesn't sign it on August 6th, he's not going to be eligible to be traded this season. So if he signs on August 6th, he can be traded on February 6th, which just so happens to be the date of the actual trade deadline. That's how small the window is. So there's that little piece of news that we might be getting this week. So everybody be on the lookout for that.
The reporting has been that he's likely to sign on August 7th or later, by the way. It doesn't seem like he wants to get traded. So either he gets traded because the Jazz just want to trade him, or he re-signs and he's there for at least another year.
It's almost like him writing a 1-year no trade clause into the contract.
Yeah.
If he just decides, you know what, I'm going to like keep my stuff, you know, like I don't feel like moving during the NBA season this year. You can move me during the off season, but I'm going to have a whole year just to like putz around Salt Lake City. So I'm going to sign it on the 7th. He could do that if he wants, but we'll be on the lookout for that. And come back and join us on Tuesday after Team USA faces, we believe, Brazil in the quarterfinals. We're going to have a live Beyond the Arc, I believe, on YouTube again. Sam will not be here, I think. Maybe be here. We don't know.
You just
Sam
let
will
me
not
know.
be here.
I'm available.
He might be here. He might not be here. If he's here, it's wonderful. And if he's not, we'll have him back after his vacation to parts unknown. But for now, make sure you read Sam on CBSSports.com. He does excellent work. But we'll be back, as I mentioned, on Tuesday. But so thank you so much, Sam Quinn. I'm John Gonzalez. We thank you all for tuning in, and have a great weekend, everybody.